Hey guys, today I'm here with Pastor Jason from Life Church, and Pastor Jason, thank you for letting me be here today and just
Absolutely.
get in your mind a little bit. So if you don't mind just telling them your position here and what you do here and what Life Church is all about.
Sure. Hey, Life Church is about 7.5 years old. We spent 6 months before we launched building a team, and I'm the lead pastor here. We've had an incredible journey as God's just kind of shaped us into who we are today.
Cool. So how did you get into this position of leadership?
You know, I've always liked the idea of leadership. I grew up in high school in the 90s and read about every John Maxwell book I could get my hands on. I always loved the idea of leadership, saw myself as a leader, and I remember one day as a 17-year-old naive high school kid thinking I was God's savior to the world. I told my dad one day, I think I know what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to travel the world and teach on leadership. And my dad kind of laughed, and we talked, and he recommended before I launch out to go teach on leadership, nobody knows who I am, and I haven't led anything, that I needed to get a few skins on the wall, have a few successes, be able to tell a story that people could relate to leadership. And but specifically Life Church, you know what, we felt God specifically called us to plant a church here and didn't like that idea. We spent a year, when I say we, my wife and I, we spent a year wrestling with God and kind of like this tug-of-war spiritually with God for 1 year about planting a church here. I was telling God all the reasons why I couldn't do it, why it was a bad idea. I was giving God the names and suggestions of other people that could probably do a much better job than I could do. And it was a really long, tough year of wrestling with God about the decision to plant a church here. You know, I figured America's got enough churches. If every church did its job, we don't need another church in America. I always saw myself as a church planter overseas. But we got a huge mission field right here in America. And that was really the end of that argument with God, and when we finally said yes to Him.
Cool. So what are some steps that you have done to become a better leader?
You know, I teach a lot that God works on the person before He works on the dream. And God's a God of process. Let me just kind of preach for just a moment, or be pastor for just a second. I'll give you the illustration of David. Little young David in the Bible was anointed by the prophet Samuel to be the next king of Israel. Problem was, he wasn't ready to be king. All he was ready to do was take care of a few smelly, stinky, stubborn sheep. But taking care of those sheep, he began to love those sheep. He knew them by name, and he was willing to defend them and protect them with his life, like any good shepherd should. And he's willing to fight off the bear and fight off the lion to protect his sheep. The next king of Israel was taking care of sheep. But that was preparing him for the encounter with Goliath. When he faced Goliath, he knew it wasn't his strength, but God's strength, because God helped him overcome the lion and overcome the bear. He realized he was dependent on God, not himself. That was part of the preparation of his process. That opened up the door for him to go into the palace, where he's playing the harp and playing music to calm the king down, but he's watching with his eyes how decision-making occurs inside the palace. He's now in Saul's army, and people are now singing about his victories. The young boy that was anointed to be king was being prepared to be king. Let's move that over to the question you asked. What have you done to prepare yourself to become a better leader? I believe God's a God of process. And some of that process is educational. And so you prepare yourself through schooling and education to learn what you need to learn. Some of that is relationships. The relationships that I have of people that I've looked at and asked them good questions, asked them to teach me or mentor me, watch them and learn from them. So some of it's education, some of it is relationship, and some of it's experience. To get out there and do it and not be afraid of failure. to learn. Some of the best lessons I have come out of failure. So you use that as teaching and as lessons. And what every leader has inside of them, the drive to do better, the drive for constant improvement, the drive to not be satisfied. And so you fan that flame in you.
That's good. So what are some of the challenges as a pastor?
There's challenges to in anything, whether it's business, church, families. Basically, the challenge comes in one way as growing pains. I have a 7-year-old son at home that's going through growing pains right now. His shins are hurting him, his knees are hurting him because he's growing. Churches have growing pains. Some of those growing pains are relational, because not everybody that started with you, that grew with you to a certain level, can grow with you to the next level. So not everybody that got you where you're at is going to be able to get you to where you're going. And so some of that is staff, people that you've brought on your team. They got you to one level, but they can't get you to the next. Some of that's volunteers, people that have served and served and served, and they serve to a level that the ministry's outgrown their ability to lead it. Some of that is relationships of people that have been with you for a long time. And all of a sudden, those people that were starters, that like the newness of something, or they like the smallness of something, feel overwhelmed and lost as something grows. So there's growing pains relationally. There's growing pains financially. As there's more income that comes in, you got to better manage it. You got to be more accountable for it. You always got to be accountable for it, but now you got to be sure that you're following all the strict rules and regulations, that you're being accountable with payroll, taxes that you have to pay in, with everything else. So you got to be accountable with finances. You got to be accountable with time management. You got to be accountable with expectations. So growth means change. Leadership always has its set of challenges. Time, managing your own time. If you don't say no to some things, if you don't manage your calendar, other people will. And it will be full of everyone else's demands and expectations on your life at the expense of your own family. And your wife and kids will feel it. As you grow, one of the words you need to learn to say is no.
That's great. So what is some of the tools that you use to build other people around you, to build the leaders around you in your church or your congregation?
You know, I believe in team-based ministry. When a basketball team takes to the court, there's 5 guys that play. When a soccer team takes to the field, there's 11 guys that go out to play. I believe we can accomplish more as teams. So we work hard at building teams around here, team dynamics. And so when we sit down with our team, whether it's been our board or it's been our staff or it's been key volunteers, we walk through an awareness of who we are. Out of the 7 billion people on planet Earth, God chose to use you to help create this ministry. So who are you? So we want to go through this self-awareness of who we are. So we walk through Rick Warren's SHAPE acronym. SHAPE, S-H-A-P-E. S is spiritual gifts. What spiritual gifts has God placed inside of you? Let's discover those, and let's work inside of those strengths, of those spiritual gifts God has given you. What's your heart? H, heart. And heart is synonymous for your passions. Like, what do you love to do? That's my little heart. What do you love to do? I love soccer. So I use soccer, my ability to coach my boys' soccer teams, as an opportunity for ministry. You could walk around any of our 3 services today, and I could introduce you to probably 20 or more families that the first time I met them was on a soccer field, doing what I love to do, my passion. H, heart. Your A is abilities. What are you just naturally good at? You know, I love worship. I love music. As a child, I've taken guitar lessons, piano lessons, bass lessons, drum lessons, trumpet lessons, singing lessons. And I don't play or sing anything because that's not my ability. So you got to know what your abilities are. Your P is your personality. We do several assessment tests. I've done a Myers-Briggs. I'm an ENTJ, one of those that they define as a natural-born leader. We do a DISC profile with our board and all of our staff, and a DISC profile. I'm an high, off-the-chart I. I know who I am, so I know what other personality types I need on my team. And then I also know how to communicate better to those guys. And I can't talk to a D or an S or a C in the same way. So you got to know how to better communicate to your team so that you can achieve more. And then your E is your life experiences, whether they've been good or bad experiences. I believe Romans 8:28. God works all things out for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. So God can even use the painful experiences of our life. Whether that was a painful divorce of your parents, watching them go through that, whether that was the loss of a child, and we've had a couple miscarriages, whether that was the loss of a job or a traumatic car wreck. I believe God will use those experiences for our good and to build his kingdom. And so all of our team, we've walked through our shape so that we can ask people to work in their strengths. And then once we know who we are, we surround ourselves with the areas that we have blind spots at, the areas we don't see, but somebody else sees it, and we need them on our team. So we're constantly trying to work to improve our team. I want to give them the resources that they need. We're always reading books together. We do quarterly goal setting. So every quarter